Professional wrestling, especially the wild and high-flying world of Lucha Libre, exists in this weird and unique space. It's somewhere between a brutal athletic competition, a soap opera, and live theater. Out of everyone who has stepped into the world of Lucha Libre, few have lived extreme highs and tragic lows of the business quite like César Cuauhtémoc González Barrón, who you probably know by his iconic ring name, Silver Cain. He survived a grueling 34-year career that took him everywhere in the world. He went from the dusty rings of the northern Mexico all the way to the giant corporate arenas of WCW in the USA. He wrestled in the respected arenas of New Japan Pro Wrestling and even made it to movie studios in Hollywood. But when you look at Silver Cain's life, you cannot just list off his championships and win-loss records. His story is a really deep look into how Lucha Libre works behind the scenes. You see the crushing weight of family expectations, the almost magical power of a wrestling mask, and the frustrating glass ceiling the Latin American luchadores hit in the US. But the saddest part of his story shows the deadly consequences of following Kayfabe till the end. Kayfabe is the unwritten rule that a wrestler must keep the illusion of wrestling no matter what. But his tragic death in London in 2019 was a wake-up call to the whole industry, forcing everyone to look hard at performer safety and emergency protocols. And to really understand what drove César, you must first understand his family. In Lucha Libre, some bloodlines are basically royalty, but with that comes a massive amount of pressure to live up to the hype and the name. César was born in January 9, 1968 in Torreón, Mexico, right into the legendary Wagner Dynasty. His dad, Manuel González Rivera, was an absolute mythic figure who wrestled under a white medical mask as Doctor Wagner. Back in the 60s and 70s, his dad earned the nickname El Galeno del Mal, which means the Doctor of Evil, because he was such a brutal, rule-breaking bad guy. César grew up with his brothers Oscar and Juan Manuel, who would later become the massive box office draw Doctor Wagner Jr., and his sister Mayra. What you might not know is that the Wagner house had really strict rules. Dr. Wagner Sr. demanded that his kids got straight A's before even thinking about putting a foot on the ring. And honestly, César didn't even want to be a wrestler at first. He just wanted a regular blue-collar life. He was going to college for computer systems in downtown Torreón and working in a machine shop owned by a friend of the family. And he truly loved the quiet, precise work of making and creating tools. He was so good at it that even at his young age, he was already submitting quotes to big companies. He really thought he was going to be a master lathe operator. But the pull of the family name was just too strong. He was trying to balance his university classes, his shifts at the machine shop, and training wrestling secretly, but all of this burned him out. He was following his dad's strict advice, skipping parties and alcohol so he could focus just on the gym. But eventually he made the big decision of dropping off college and leaving his job at the machine shop. And he was doing it to gamble his life on wrestling. He figured that if he was doing what he loved, he would never work one day in his life. But now his father didn't make it easy. To prove he wasn't just a spoiled kid coasting on his family's money, his dad dropped him off at a freezing third-floor training gym in Mexico City and basically told him to survive or go home. He always said that brutal experience gave him his work ethic and made him tough. And he eventually married to another legendary wrestling family, tying the knot with Xochitl Hamada. If you don't know who she is, she was a fantastic technical wrestler who won the CMLL World Women's Championship and the AAA Reina de Reinas title. Her dad was Gran Hamada, a pioneer who mixed Japanese and Mexican styles, and her sister was the famous Ayako Hamada. César and Xochitl eventually divorced, but their son later stepped into the ring as El Hijo de Silver Cain to carry on both massive legacies. César had his first professional match in November 1985, and he was trained by his dad and the heavyweight Gran Marcus. To protect him from the pressure of the Wagner name, they had him debut under a mask as El Impostor. But within a year he found the identity that he would use for the rest of his life, Silver Cain. He started working for the Universal Wrestling Association, and he climbed the ranks fast. And as you know, in Lucha Libre, a mask is everything. It basically makes you a superhero. And losing it is usually the worst thing that can happen to the career of a luchador. In 1987, when he was really young, Silver Cain got booked into a massive mask versus mask match against El Hijo del Santo in Tijuana. And unfortunately, Silver Cain lost. He had to stand in the middle of the ring and announce his real name to the crowd, revealing he was Dr. Wagner's son. But surprisingly, losing the mask actually helped him. It let him use his very expressive face. He had this great menacing stare that he couldn't show under the mask, but now he was able to connect with the crowd on another level. After losing the mask, he teamed up with El Texano to form Los Cowboys. And it's been said that they were one of the best tag teams around during the late 80s and early 90s. They completely bridged the gap between chaotic Mexican brawls and the hard-hitting styles of Japan and the US. They dominated everywhere. They won the UWA World Tag Team Championship in January 1992 by defeating Gran Hamada and Kendo in Japan. And they also picked up the WWA World Tag Team belts. They were so good that the WCW took them to the United States. On June 16, 1992, Los Cowboys wrestled on national TV at Clash of the Champions 19 against the Fabulous Freebirds. Sure, they lost in about 6.5 minutes, but it was a historic moment. It introduced American fans to the fast-paced Mexican style and totally laid the groundwork for WCW's famous cruiserweight division. Another thing is that they weren't afraid of getting bloody. In 1994, Los Cowboys went to IWA in Japan, a promotion famous for horrifying death matches. They won the IWA World Tag Team Championships from the Headhunters in 1995, and during his time on the company, he also faced his friend El Texano in a death match. It was clear that Silver Cain proved he could literally wrestle any style on the planet. By 1993, Los Cowboys moved to CMLL, and this is where Silver Cain broke out as a huge singles star. And of course, this was imminent. He was built uniquely. At 212 pounds, he was thick enough to fight heavyweights, but athletic enough to do cruiserweight dives. On July 28, 1994, he beat Black Magic to win the CMLL World Heavyweight Championship. And he didn't even drop his tag run. He and Texano won the CMLL tag titles later that year by beating El Satánico and Emilio Charles Jr. He even won the 1995 Gran Alternativa Rookie Tournament, teaming with Shocker and defeating Astro Rey Jr. and his own brother, Doctor Wagner Jr. Eventually, Los Cowboys split amicably, and in 1997, César won the tag titles alongside his brother, defeating two absolute legends, Dos Caras and Último Dragón, solidifying the Wagner bloodline's dominance. But then during this era, something in the US was brewing, and the Monday Night Wars were about to change everything. Eric Bischoff recruited Silver Cain in 1997 for the new cruiserweight division. But looking back, this WCW run was incredibly frustrating. Even though he was a world champion in Mexico, WCW mostly used him as an enhancement talent to make other guys look good on TV. His biggest match was challenging Juventud Guerrera for the title at Fall Brawl 1998, which he lost. Later that year, Eddie Guerrero formed the Latino World Order, the LWO. It was a brilliant storyline because Eddie's promos called out the real backstage politics and how badly Mexican wrestlers were treated by management. Eddie recruited Silver Cain on TV by pointing out he was overworked and underpaid. César accepted and joined the faction. It was something really cool, but this didn't really fix his spot on the cards. By 2000, Vince Russo's creative team put him in a joke tag team with El Dandy called Los Fabulosos, managed by Stacy Keibler. It was absurd and totally undercut how dangerous he was in the ring. WCW ended up releasing him in late 2000. But Silver Cain decided he was not going to give a step back. Instead, he was going to reinvent himself. He went to New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2001, and they gave him the legendary character Black Tiger 3. This was a massive sign of respect, as that character was famous for fighting Tiger Mask. He got to wear a mask again and brought the character back to CMLL, winning the Trios title with his brother and Universo 2000 while keeping his real identity a secret. But when New Japan Pro Wrestling gave the character to Rocky Romero in 2005, CMLL tried to repackage César as another masked luchador named Bronco, but it totally failed. This again put him in a difficult situation. He couldn't keep using the Black Tiger character anymore, but just moving on without closure and ignoring the character didn't sit right with him. It was then that a well-known enemy came into view. LA Park, the original La Parca, has always been known as one of the toughest luchadores in Mexico, and Silver Cain knew it really well from their time together in WCW. So he decided he would bet his mask against what he saw as a worthy opponent. LA Park vs Black Tiger 3, Mask vs Mask, Máscara contra Máscara, was set. On February 4, 2006, in his hometown of Torreón, Mexico, the match took place to a sold-out arena. I would like to tell you this was an even match in which both luchadores ended up almost fading to defend their mask, but that was not the case. In an amazing display of technique, strength, and resilience, Black Tiger dominated LA Park like few luchadores have ever done. LA Park seemed to barely be able to move, and Black Tiger was still confident and even making fun of his rival. But this confidence was his doom. In a moment after turning away from LA Park, he took advantage and put him in a paquetito, or a roll-up. The referee counted to 3 and the bell rang. Black Tiger couldn't believe it. In the end, LA Park's mask was barely hanging onto his face, and Black Tiger was barely breathing heavily. Once he took off his mask, there was no need to say his full name and years of career as it's the tradition, since everybody knew who he was. Losing the mask marks the end of the career for many luchadores, and losing 2 masks must be incredibly painful for any respectable luchador. But Cesar wasn't just any luchador, he was one of the best. In 2006, Hollywood came calling, and he was cast in the Jack Black comedy Nacho Libre. The director, Jared Hess, needed a villain who looked like a terrifying classic luchador, and he found his man in Cesar, who ended up playing Ramses, the golden masked champion. He barely had any lines, but his physical acting was brilliant, and the final match sequence with Jack Black was pure perfection, also showing some notes of comedy. In Mexico, Nacho Libre has become a must-see movie for all generations, and still to this day people reference lines and images of the movie as memes. This of course introduced him to a totally mainstream audience, and of course he was very smart about it too. He started wearing the Ramses gear in real independent matches, completely blurring the line between movies and real life. In 2008, he signed with AAA and immediately started a massive legal controversy. This was because he started to wear his old Silver King mask again. And this was because in Mexico, once you lose your mask, you cannot just start wearing it again. Yes, you can have new masked characters, but once you lose your mask with one name, you cannot just keep using the same mask all over again. The head of the Lucha Libre Commission, El Fantasma, stepped in before Triple Mania 17 and told him he was not able to wear the mask he had lost in 1987. But Cesar was aware of this, and instead of using his mask, he used body paint in the form of his mask. But also the following year he found a legal loophole. What he did is that he applied for a license under a new name, Silver Cain. He argued it was a totally different character that had never lost a pet match. The commission bought it. It let him legally wear the mask again, and the name Cain fit perfectly into a bitter, violent feud he was having with his brother, Doctor Wagner Jr. But as we all know, wrestling takes a brutal toll on the body. By his early 50s, his body was already breaking down. In an interview just weeks before he died, he admitted he was hurting and thinking about moving into promoting, though he called wrestling an addiction he couldn't break. In May 2019, he traveled to London to wrestle as part of some events that El Hijo del Santo was headlining, the same luchador that had taken his mask. Cesar was already 51 years old, and for his last match, he came out wearing his beautiful and menacing Silver King gear to wrestle his old WCW rival, Juventud Guerrera. During the match, Silver King hit a flying clothesline, went for a pin, and after Juventud broke the pin, you could see Cesar moving on the ring, struggling to get up, which he never did. He was suffering a massive heart attack right there on the canvas. But because the entire sport is built on acting hurt, nobody thought it was real. Juventud tried to buy him time to catch his breath, eventually kicking him in the chest to try and wake him up to finish the match. Juventud went for the pin, and the referee, Black Terry, thought Cesar was just selling. So he counted to 3 incredibly slow, playing up his character. The crowd just cheered. It took 90 seconds for everyone to realize he wasn't acting, and a horrifying 5 minutes for medical help to arrive. He ended up dying in the ring. Fans were outraged and they demanded to know how this could happen. The promoter didn't require medical checks, so nobody knew Cesar had severe heart disease and had survived a previous heart attack. The first aid responder thought she was only there for the fans and didn't even bring her defibrillator to the ring at first. A paramedic noted the CPR being done was totally ineffective, and an ambulance manager pointed out that every delayed minute tanked his survival chances. To make it worse, venue security made the paramedics walk all the way around the building, delaying them further. It was a heartbreaking wake-up call for the industry, bringing memories of the tragic in-ring death of El Hijo del Perro Aguayo in 2015. It proved that wrestling desperately needs paramedics at ringside, and also a clear way to break character when someone is in desperate need for help. César Cuauhtémoc González Barrón was truly a luchador who could do it all. He navigated family pressure, backstage politics, and legal red tape. For a lot of international fans, he's even more remembered than his brother, who is more popular in Mexico. In my opinion, Silver Cain remains one of the most underrated luchadores in Mexico. A massive talent that the rest of the world admired, but that Mexican fans often only identify as the brother of the son who got the junior title. He gave his life to the theatrical illusion that made him a global name. But tragically, that same illusion also cost him his life. In 2019, AAA rightly put him in his Hall of Fame. And in the hearts of his WCW fans, as well as the millions of people who treasure Nacho Libre as one of their favorite movies, the great Emperor of the Ring, Ramses, the roaring Black Tiger, the fan favorite Silver Cain, will never be forgotten. I hope you liked this video on Silver Cain. A lot of you asked for it in the Doctor Wagner Jr.'s video I made, so here it is. Let me know in the comments if you already knew that Ramses from Nacho Libre was Silver Cain. My name is Eric and you can follow me to learn more about Lucha Libre, and I will see you in the next video.